A dark-haired woman in jeans walks through a dim alleyway, carrying a baseball bat and a selfie stick. Clanking sounds echo as Jia starts a live stream, greeting over 1,000 viewers with a bright smile. Known as a popular YouTuber, the 24-year-old woman boasts a following of 680,000 subscribers. Her channel features a variety of lifestyle content, ranging from dessert reviews and skincare routines to wedding announcements.
Jia stares at her laptop in distress as her subscriber count and income face a sharp, sudden decline. To save her channel, she attempts new live content while reminding herself to be extremely careful with her words. Viewers notice an eerie clanking sound in the background, making them worry that Jia might be in actual danger. Jia laughs off their concerns and reveals a heavy baseball bat to the camera, explaining the source of noise. She admits the bat was lent for protection by her friend Aaron, though she finds the neighborhood quite safe. After reading warnings about the dangerous construction sites nearby, Jia stops and looks around the quiet, dark alley. She thanks her fans for their concern as a man in camouflage pants approaches her from the shadows behind. Jia claims she is strong enough to handle herself, oblivious to the man steadily closing the distance between them. Annoyed by her viewers' skepticism, she remains unaware of the tall, gray-haired man standing right behind her. Jia decides to demonstrate her power, crouching to set up her camera while the mysterious stranger watches her. As she prepares her swing, the live chat explodes with frantic warnings about the handsome man looming behind her. Thwack! Jia swings the bat with full force, accidentally striking the unsuspecting man directly in his face. The gray-haired man collapses instantly, leaving Jia frozen in shock while her viewers react with horror and disbelief. Realizing what she has done, Jia stares at the fallen man as comments predict her career is officially over. A high-pitched scream rings out as the narration notes how unbelievable the incident would be without video evidence. Desperate and sobbing, Jia profusely apologizes to the injured man during their chaotic and painful first meeting. Guchan stares blankly with a bleeding nose and a bruised face while Jia frantically offers to call for help. Jia begs him to stay conscious, holding him on the ground while promising to take full responsibility for him. Later in the hospital, Guchan sits in bed with bandages on his face and an IV in his arm. He is revealed to be a hardworking young man who toils at construction sites to support his family. Despite being only 20, he is the sole provider, now worrying about the pay he lost while being hospitalized. He frets over rising elementary school expenses, wondering how he will earn money with his head injury. Regretting his wasted time, Guchan prepares to leave the hospital immediately to find work. Despite his condition, Jia watches him with a mixture of guilt and concern, realizing the heavy financial burden he carries. Panicked, she stops him from getting up, begging him to wait before he does something reckless. She warns that pulling out the IV would be dangerous and messy, urging him to remain still and calm. Jia continues her frantic warnings about the potential for blood and injury while Guchan looks at her with exhaustion. He eventually agrees to lie back down, acknowledging that getting further hurt would only lead to more expensive bills. Jia offers him a box of drinks, but the gray-haired man tells her to just leave them aside for later. A sudden, heavy silence falls over the room as Guchan looks up at Jia with a confused expression. Jia bows deeply in a sincere apology, startling Guchan as she once again begs for his forgiveness. She tearfully explains his mild concussion and swears the blow with the bat was an unintentional, horrific accident. Guchan forgives her, noting that a bat strike is minor compared to the injuries he usually faces at work. Online, several short videos of the street assault scandal go viral, attracting hundreds of thousands of curious viewers. Jia shows him the viral clips, apologizing for the invasion of his privacy and the public scandal she caused. She promises to do her best to stop the unauthorized uploads, though she admits it will be a struggle. Guchan remains stoic while looking at the screen, seemingly unfazed by his sudden and unwanted internet fame. Gia clarifies that the footage isn't on public TV, but on her personal social media and streaming channels. He tells her not to worry about it, turning his back to her as he dismisses the incident's importance. Gu-chan insists he is fine and tells her to stop apologizing, suggesting she finally go home and rest. When Gia mentions the 3,000 live viewers, Gu-chan makes a joke about getting famous on TV instead. He dismisses the viewership numbers as small compared to the whole population, leaving Gia stunned by his calm attitude. He tells her he is truly fine, urging her to get up from the cold floor and stop worrying. Gu-chan expresses concern over the expensive IV drip, but Gia reveals that she has already settled his bill. He remains silent, staring forward with a tired gaze while Gia's news about the payment sinks in. As he mentions returning to work tomorrow, Gia leans in close, their proximity creating a brief, tense moment. Gu-chan lies in bed as Kwon-jia worries about his plan to return to work so soon. The dark-haired woman encourages him to take all the time he needs to recover fully without any pressure. Gu-chan nervously thanks her after she generously offers to cover his hospital bills and any other necessary expenses. Kwon-jia tells him not to worry about the photos, leaving the gray-haired man looking utterly bewildered. He insists he needs nothing more, prompting her to decide to leave quickly so he can finally rest. Feeling like a burden, she resolves to pack her things and depart, allowing the injured man some peace. A sudden heart-thumping sound fills the room as Gu-chan is completely startled by how beautiful she looks. Stunned by her appearance, he struggles to find the right words while his heart continues to race uncontrollably. Kwon-jia quietly begins to leave the hospital room as Gu-chan watches her from his bed in silence. As she prepares to depart, she reaches out toward him with a gentle and lingering movement. She hands over her business card, encouraging him to reach out at any time if he needs help. With a parting look, she expresses her sincere apologies for the events that transpired earlier that day. Gu-chan stares at the card, finally learning her name is Kwon-jia as she leaves him behind. He holds the business card close, processing the encounter with the mysterious and kind woman. Lying alone in the hospital, he gloomily assumes that he will probably never cross paths with her again. A sharp slap sounding echoes as he strikes his own face to snap himself out of his daydream. He questions why his thoughts aren't aligning with the way a narrator would expect him to feel. Berating himself for wasting time, he reflects on how quickly children grow up and life passes by. He tries to focus on reality, yet a faint blush remains on his face as he settles back. Time passes in a blur as he dedicates himself to earning money, oblivious to the changing world. Now back at work, the gray-haired man finds himself frantically running away from an unseen pursuing force.
A massive crowd chases him, recognizing him as the famous victim from a viral beauty YouTuber's video.
People scream out his new nickname, Tukbaek, while gushing over his handsome looks as he flees. Panting and confused, he wonders why everyone is calling him Tukbaek and why they won't leave him alone. He desperately pleads for peace as he continues to run from the relentless swarm of obsessed fans. The scene shifts to a quiet construction site as the sun begins to set over the horizon. Exhausted and out of breath, Gu-chan hides behind a pillar, hoping he finally managed to shake them off. Just as he breathes a sigh of relief, he is startled by a loud voice calling his name. Mr. Kim approaches him excitedly, holding up a phone showing the viral video of Gu-chan's accident. Gu-chan is horrified to realize that even his coworker has recognized him from the trending internet video. Mr. Kim gleefully points out that the injuries and the story perfectly match the man in the video. The older man informs him that he is currently a massive sensation across the entire internet. Staring at the screen, Gu-chan realizes the footage clearly shows him and Kwon-jia during the incident. He finally understands that his nickname Tukbaek refers to his head getting busted open in the video. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out to him,
causing him to freeze mid-thought at the construction site. He pauses, certain that the voice he just heard is one he recognizes from his recent past. He looks up in disbelief as Kwon Jia appears before him, waving as she enters the site. Smiling brightly, she carries a large fruit basket to celebrate his return and discharge from the hospital. The surrounding construction workers stare in shock at the beautiful and unexpected visitor approaching their coworker. From above the site, murmurs of curiosity rise among the staff as they watch the scene unfold. The men whisper and point, jokingly labeling Mr. Kim as the culprit behind the sudden celebrity appearance. Overjoyed coworkers tease him, calling the woman Chani's bride, and clutching their chests in mock excitement. A miniature Mr. Kim clings to his shoulder, teasing him about becoming a celebrity and getting married. Kwon Jia looks at him with a warm expression, her presence completely transforming the dull work environment. Gu-chan stands frozen, unable to fathom how an outsider like her even managed to enter the site. The teasing from the older men continues as they admire how much she looks like a celebrity. She expresses her deep concern, chiding him for pushing himself too hard by coming straight to work. Holding out the fruit basket, she officially congratulates him on being discharged and returning to his life. Kwon Jia genuinely admires his profession, telling the gray-haired man that working at a construction site is cool. Her kind words hit home, causing Gu-chan's heart to start pounding fast with renewed affection. Gu-chan feels overwhelmed as his coworkers swarm him, teasingly repeating that the beautiful woman called him cool. Kwon Jia puts on a white hard hat labeled with his name, preparing to move through the active site. Looking focused, the dark-haired woman adjusts the oversized safety gear while checking her reflection or the path ahead. Gu-chan guides her away from the center of the site, suggesting they find a safer place to continue talking. She agrees immediately, looking concerned as she realizes the potential dangers of standing in the middle of construction. Coworkers cheer and hoot as they depart, causing Gu-chan to scream back that she isn't his wife. He apologizes for his mischievous colleagues, urging her to simply ignore their loud and embarrassing wedding jokes. The gray-haired man thanks her for returning the helmet as they finally reach a much quieter area. He hesitates, noticing her lingering presence after their previous conversation was supposed to have reached its conclusion. Kwon Jia looks back at him with a startled expression, her eyes wide as she searches for the right words. She awkwardly laughs off his question about her visit, struggling to find a way to explain her sudden appearance. A sudden bow and apology follow as she shows him the viral video's harsh and skeptical comment section. She explains that the public is demanding proof of his well-being, placing a heavy burden of responsibility on her. A close-up of their feet highlights the fruit basket she brought as a sincere peace offering during this crisis. Gu-chan listens quietly as she admits she never expected the incident to escalate into a national news story. Kwon Jia rubs her head in visible distress, feeling completely overwhelmed by the persistent and growing online backlash. She looks up with determined and pleading eyes, preparing to ask him for a difficult and deeply personal favor. Standing before the construction signage, she confesses that her request feels incredibly shameless given the circumstances. Gu-chan is left completely bewildered, wondering what the famous YouTuber could possibly want from a laborer like him. She asks if he would be willing to provide a public statement, looking visibly shaken by her own desperation. He remains silent for a long moment, his face cast in shadow as he processes her unexpected and heavy request. Kwon Jia bows deeply again, promising to spend the rest of her life repaying his kindness if he helps. Gu-chan stares at her, stunned by her vow to return the favor 100-fold regardless of the time passed. Her dramatic promises fill the air, emphasizing that she will ensure his help is never a source of regret. He looks away with a neutral expression, seemingly weighing the impact of her words against his own desire for peace. The scene shifts to a live broadcast where they introduce themselves to a rapidly growing audience of thousands. Quan Jia gently encourages the nervous and bowed gray-haired man to finally lift his head for the viewers. They address the camera together as she explains her choice to go live for a clearer, unedited explanation. She officially introduces the accident victim, expressing her gratitude for his willingness to personally join the clarification broadcast. Gu-chan awkwardly scratches his cheek while reassuring the audience that he is fine and the injuries weren't serious. He tells the viewers that they resolved everything privately on the day of the accident, feeling confused by the controversy. Real-time chat messages flood in, showing that the audience is beginning to accept their explanation and move on. Seeing the positive feedback, Gu-chan feels a massive wave of relief as the digital storm finally starts to dissipate. Behind the scenes, Quan Jia leans toward him with a subtle movement as the pressure of the broadcast lingers. He looks at her with a calm and steady gaze, observing how the intense situation has affected the woman. Internally, Quan Jia remains terrified, worrying that people might still criticize her for involving the victim in her mess. She continues to spiral with worry, fearing that her actions might lead to even more trouble for his quiet life. A sudden gasp escapes her as she stares ahead, paralyzed by the fear of being seen as a manipulator. A soft, quick touch occurs as Gu-chan gently places his hand over hers to offer a silent moment of support. He admits he could tell she was shaking, choosing to comfort her despite the awkwardness of the situation. A close-up shows his steady hand firmly holding hers, providing a much-needed anchor during her emotional breakdown. Startled by the sudden physical contact, the gray-haired man wonders why he acted so impulsively in that moment. He reflects on the fact that despite his calm appearance, his own heart hasn't actually settled down at all. A sudden heart-thumping sound fills the room as Quan Jia blushes deeply, overwhelmed by his direct kindness. The realization of her own racing heart makes her even more nervous, her face flushing bright pink in response. Gu-chan resolves to just let her calm down on her own, fearing that any more intervention might make things worse. A black SUV drives through the quiet city streets at night, carrying the pair away from the studio. Inside the car, an heavy and awkward silence settles between them as they sit side by side in the dark. Gu-chan responds to her breaking the silence, his expression unreadable as they move through the urban landscape. Quan Jia admits her request was selfish and expresses her deep gratitude for him going beyond the initial plan. Driving away, Quan Jia admits she's surprised Gu-chan suggested the livestream himself, despite being an outsider to her industry. Gu-chan explains that a public appearance was the best way to prove he's fine and truly settle the online storm. He silently reflects that her intense guilt was becoming its own burden, driving his decision to help her move on. He recalls her dramatic, tearful apologies and worries that leaving the situation unresolved would have only led to more complications. Watching him from the driver's seat, Quan Jia finds the gray-haired man's calm and practical nature deeply fascinating. She observes that he seems completely disconnected from social media culture, suggesting he has zero personal interest in his newfound fame. A wide yawn from Gu-chan leaves her stunned, marveling at how he can be so relaxed while she remains incredibly nervous. Blushing and flustered, she asks if they managed to wrap things up well, seeking reassurance after the high-pressure broadcast. A close-up of her focused eye reveals her growing interest as she continues to study the mysterious laborer beside her. Her pupils dilate as she begins to wonder if this strange encounter could actually be leading toward something more significant. She stares ahead with a realization, questioning if this unexpected meeting is actually a hidden opportunity in more ways than one. As they reach his neighborhood, Gua-chan asks her to pull over, and they exchange quick, polite words to end the ride. Standing outside the quiet Gosiwon,
In heavy and expectant silence falls between them under the dim glow of the streetlights.
Kwanjia asks if the malicious comments will finally stop, expressing her profound gratitude for his help in calming public opinion.
She pauses mid-sentence, her expression changing as she mentions how their explanation broadcast is already starting to circulate online. Pang! A sudden surge of embarrassment causes her face to explode in a bright red blush, leaving the confused Guchan staring.
Overwhelmed by her own racing heart, she desperately hides her face behind her hair, unable to handle the awkward tension.
Guchan gazes at her with a blank expression, wondering if she's suddenly feeling cold because of her relatively thin clothing. Peeking through her fingers, she suggests they go inside quickly, secretly feeling a pang of regret that their time together is ending. She looks up at him and softly calls his name, Chani, catching him off guard as they stand on the sidewalk. With a sincere gaze, she tells him how relieved she is to see him healthy and doing well after the accident. Kwanjia admits that while the official statement was important, it wasn't the only reason she came to see him today. Guchan's face flushes bright pink as she confesses her personal desire to check on him was her strongest motivation. They both descend into flustered laughter, exchanging shy thanks while struggling to process the sudden shift in their dynamic. A long, silent moment of mutual embarrassment follows as they both stand frozen, unsure of how to properly say goodbye. After an incredibly awkward parting, Guchan heads toward his building while Kwanjia prepares to drive home into the night. The gray-haired man walks up the dark, quiet stairs of the Gosiwon, his shoulders slumped from the weight of the day. He reflects on how exhausting the day felt, noting that a single broadcast felt like several intense filming sessions back to back. Reaching the landing, he thinks about his adjusted work schedule and the silly antics of his older coworkers at the site. He stops for a moment, feeling a sense of relief that the legal and social issues surrounding the accident are finally resolved. His phone vibrates with an unexpected late-night call from his mother, and he answers with a wary and tired greeting. The scene shifts back to the quiet city street where Kwanjia's black SUV remains parked near the curb. Inside the car, Kwanjia leans her head against the steering wheel, groaning as she struggles to process the day's events. She worries if she overdid her goodbye, or if she should have offered her contact information one more time before leaving. Sternly telling herself to snap out of it, she finally puts on her seatbelt and prepares to head home. The perspective shifts to the dark street, where a pair of legs stand still, illuminated by the cold blue light of a screen. Kwanjia reacts with wide-eyed shock and confusion, her attention suddenly diverted by a startling sight outside her car window. Guchan is hunched over the hood of her SUV, gasping for breath as he desperately tries to get her attention. Standing in the glare of the headlights, the disheveled man looks completely distraught, a stark contrast to his earlier calm demeanor. Tears stream down his face as he looks at her through the windshield, crying out a desperate plea for help. Byong! The blaring sirens of an ambulance fill the air as it arrives at the entrance of a medical emergency center. Frantic and out of breath, Guchan leans over the hospital intake desk, urgent words tumbling out as he seeks medical information. Kwanjia arrives at the hospital shortly after, her face pale with concern as she searches for the gray-haired man. He turns to look at her, his expression a mixture of shock and exhaustion as she suddenly appears by his side. A gentle touch occurs as she places her hand over his on the counter, offering a steadying presence in the chaos. She reassures him with a soft voice, promising that everything is going to be okay, and urging him not to worry. Guchan stares at her in silence, visibly moved by her unexpected support during this sudden and terrifying family crisis. Inside a hospital room, a young girl named Gu Heian sits in bed with her arm in a medical sling. Guchan stands frozen at the doorway, his eyes wide as he finally sees his twin sister safe but clearly injured.
He immediately swarms her with frantic concern, checking her head and arms while bombarding her with worried questions about her condition. Hyen looks bewildered as questions about her mother and twin brother Hai-chen fill the air.
Still appearing dazed, she listens to the frantic inquiry about whether she injured her head during her collapse.
Guchan's hands suddenly frame her face, his expression intense as he demands to know exactly what happened.
The gray-haired man's brow furrows with worry, a bead of sweat betraying his internal panic over her condition.
He presses for the truth, his hands staying firm as Hyen struggles to process his high-energy interrogation.
A chaotic playground flashback reveals Hyen lying on the ground while children scream for someone to help her. She huddles on the grass, clutching her throbbing arm and crying out for someone to go find an adult. Tears stream down her face as the sharp pain in her arm becomes too much for her to bear.
In the present, Hyen sobs against her brother's chest, confessing she tried to hide the pain to avoid hospital bills. Guchan pulls his sister into a tight embrace as she apologizes for being a financial burden on him.
He softly speaks her name, his heart breaking as she looks up at him with red, tear-filled eyes.
Reassuring her with a gentle smile, Guchan explains that he has more than enough money for her care. He tells her she can stay as long as needed, priority being her health above all other concerns. Guchan tenderly wipes away her tears, instructing her to always speak up immediately if she is ever hurt again. With a quiet sniff, Hyen finally begins to calm down, her brother's unwavering support anchoring her through the trauma. He offers a warm, relieved smile, telling her there is absolutely no need for her to feel sorry.
Stepping out of the room, Guchan leans against the hallway wall, his body finally sagging from the day's stress.
He exhales a long, heavy breath, standing in the quiet corridor as he tries to compose his racing thoughts. The weight of the crisis finally hits him, and he sinks to the floor in a moment of pure emotional exhaustion. Kwon Jia suddenly appears in the hallway, looking down at the hunched man with a surprised and concerned expression. She feels a wave of embarrassment, worrying that her presence might be intrusive during such a private, vulnerable moment. Guchan scrambles to his feet, frantically smoothing his hair as he reassures her that Hyen is doing much better. The black-haired woman looks at him with a startled gaze, seemingly caught off guard by his sudden burst of energy. Confusion crosses Guchan's face as he realizes the expensive hospital bill has already been settled in full. Kwon Jia offers a sheepish, kind smile while holding the paid medical documents firmly in her hands. Guchan's eyes bulge with shock as he finally sees the staggering total amount written on the paper. The receipt clearly shows a bill for nearly 1.9 million won, leaving him stunned by the woman's generosity. Floating text options highlight his inner conflict as he tries to find a polite way to refuse her help. He looks away, sweating, as he realizes his intended protests were exactly what he shouldn't have said. Guchan remains seated on the bench, completely drained while clutching the paid receipt that changes everything. Jia approaches him with 2 cups of coffee, offering a warm drink to help him through the long night. She explains that she felt responsible for his missed work and wanted to handle the sister's medical room upgrade. Guchan stares toward the hallway with a somber expression, trying to reconcile his pride with her direct kindness. His internal monologue admits that missing 2 days of construction work is a significant blow to his meager finances. A close-up shows her offering him the steaming cup, a silent gesture of solidarity in the cold hospital hallway. Kwon Jia encourages him to take care of himself, recognizing the immense stress he's carried since the accident. Speech bubbles detail the medical update, confirming Hyen has mild pneumonia alongside the simple arm fracture.
Gia's expression softens as she voices her profound relief that the young girl's condition isn't more serious. A small crow-like figure appears as an emoticon while Gia looks flustered by the lingering silence between them. She asks if he is preparing to leave, her gaze fixed on him as the high-pressure situation finally begins to settle. A sudden, loud shout erupts as Gu Hei-chan bursts into the hallway with a look of absolute shock. The young boy stares at his brother and the beautiful woman, his imagination clearly running wild. Hei-chan shouts excitedly about his brother having a girlfriend, leaving Gu-chan looking like he wants to disappear. Hyein peeks out from the hospital room with a stunned expression, holding her pink plush bunny tightly. Gu-chan's face twists in anger as he tells the loudmouthed boy to shut up before he causes more trouble. From the bed, Hyein's face explodes in a bright red blush as she processes the shocking news. Gia awkwardly waves a hand in greeting, her own face flushing pink from the children's sudden accusations. Gu-chan stares blankly into the distance, wondering if this entire day is actually just a very elaborate prank. With wide eyes and a blushing face, Hyein asks Gia if she is truly her brother's secret girlfriend. The black-haired woman is left speechless, her expression a mixture of shock and extreme embarrassment under their intense scrutiny. Gu-chan stares blankly, his face flushing a deep pink as he struggles to process the chaotic hospital situation. From inside the hospital room, a loud and happy voice shouts praise for the kind black-haired woman. Gu-chan watches as the children beg Gia to return tomorrow, while she promises a future call with Biker. Gia sits on the hospital bed, entertaining the children with stories about her past filming experiences while Gu-chan watches. The atmosphere is light as Hyein reveals a secret crush, and Hei-chan celebrates his chance to talk to a hero. Gu-chan offers a rare, soft smile while listening to Hei-chan's enthusiastic declarations of love and respect for Gia. Gia bonds with the kids, braiding Hyein's hair as they play together, hearts filling the room with warmth. Exhaustion finally wins as Hyein and Hei-chan fall into a deep, messy sleep on the hospital bed. Gu-chan gently adjusts his younger brother's leg, looking down at the sleeping boy with a mixture of fondness and concern. Tucked under the covers, Hyein sleeps peacefully with her pink plush bunny nestled closely against her chest. Standing by the bedside, the gray-haired man watches over his siblings while they sleep soundly in the quiet room. Gia sits on the nearby couch, her eyes closed as she finally allows herself a moment of rest. Gu-chan glances toward the black-haired woman, his expression unreadable as he stands in the dimly lit hospital room. A heavy silence settles over the room as Gu-chan sits on the floor while Gia rests on the sofa. Leaning against the wall, the gray-haired man stares blankly ahead, the weight of the day visible in his eyes. Gu-chan rubs the back of his neck, looking awkward as he tries to find the right words to speak. He suggests that Gia should head home since it's late, promising to stay until their mother returns to the hospital. Gia explains that the children's mother is resting and confirms she will stay until the mother is ready to return. Gu-chan apologizes for the uncomfortable room, but Gia quickly reassures him that the hospital environment is perfectly fine. Looking up with a sincere expression, the black-haired woman offers a heartfelt thanks to the man for his help. Gu-chan becomes flustered, expressing guilt over the hospital bills and the precious time she has spent helping his family. He thanks her for being so kind to his siblings, noting how much Hyein truly admires her. The gray-haired man looks at Gia with renewed determination, vowing to repay her generosity no matter the cost. Gia mentions that she is available to help if any further issues arise from their shared accident. Gu-chan looks directly at the woman, his expression serious as he prepares to ask her an important question. Caught off guard by his sudden focus, Gia looks up with a wide-eyed and questioning gaze. He takes a deep breath and asks if she would be willing to start a couple's YouTube channel together. Gu-chan leans in close, explaining that they could work together just like they did during the day's events. A nervous sweat drop appears on his face as he notices her silence and tentatively asks for her answer. Gia's face goes pale with shock as she flatly refuses his unexpected proposal with a blunt rejection. The rejection echoes in Gia's mind, her eyes wide as the phrase, "don't want to," repeats in the background. Guchan tries to play it cool, acting as if the rejection was expected, despite his obvious disappointment. Gia becomes flustered, exclaiming that her reasons should be obvious given the current situation. Guchan gestures toward his sleeping siblings, suggesting that her hesitation is tied to the responsibilities he already carries. He rubs his face, looking tired and slightly embarrassed as the tension between them lingers in the air. Gia looks away, explaining that she cannot commit to a career that doesn't provide a stable income. Guchan clarifies if her concern is primarily about the financial risk of starting a new channel together. Gia suddenly offers an incredibly lopsided profit split, insisting that he should keep all the revenue for himself. Stunned into silence, Guchan stares at her, unable to process the woman's extreme and selfless business offer. She continues to push the idea, promising that the 100% revenue split would apply to every video they create. Gia details the terms, promising limited filming sessions and handling all the difficult technical work behind the scenes. The gray-haired man looks intensely tempted, his resolve crumbling under the weight of her generous and supportive terms. Despite the narration claiming he agreed, Guchan frantically waves his hands and denies being swayed by her offer. Confused by his reaction, Gia looks up at him and asks what is truly holding him back from agreeing. Guchan admits that for the venture to work, it must earn at least as much as his delivery job. Gia remains seated on the floor, her back turned, showing the colorful clips holding her long black hair in place. Guchan looks away, sweating as he tries to maintain his pride while considering the life-changing opportunity. With a shadowy and determined look, Gia stands up and instructs the man to stand up as well. Cha! Gia presents her phone screen, revealing a bank balance of over 652 million won in her savings account. Guchan's eyes pop out in cartoonish shock as she explains that this is only a fraction of her YouTube earnings. Guchan's hand trembles as he stares at the phone screen, realizing the balance totals an unbelievable 500 million won. Seated in the hospital, the gray-haired man warns Gia that the YouTube industry is unstable and often leads to failure. He continues his lecture on the fierce competition of the platform, noting that success often depends entirely on luck. Gia looks flustered yet determined, insisting that she is actually quite lucky despite her recent decline in popularity. Guchan's ears appear oversized in a comedic reaction as he processes her incredible offer of a 10-0 profit split. Sparkling with hope, the black-haired woman asks if he truly isn't even a little interested in their potential together. Guchan's hands are tightly clenched as he considers her proposal, wondering if they really could grow even bigger as a team. Gia pleads with her eyes closed, whispering that this represents an amazing, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for both of them. A chibi-style Guchan looks completely dazed and overwhelmed, surrounded by little owl icons while he stammers in confusion. The pair formally bows to each other in the hospital room, finalizing their new partnership with a mutual vow of effort. The scene shifts to Guchan's cramped room, where a large crack in the window is crudely patched with brown tape. Guchan lies shirtless on his small bed, impressed by how quickly Gia sent over the draft contract for their channel. He reviews the digital document on his phone, feeling a rare moment of optimism about his future prospects. The gray-haired man lies back and focuses on his phone, preparing to carefully go over the specific terms of their agreement. Unease settles in as he reads, feeling that the extremely generous profit split makes the deal feel like a reverse slave contract. He stares at his damaged window, questioning why a famous creator would do so much for someone in his position. A sudden, sharp thud sounds as Gu-chan accidentally drops his phone on his face, causing him to curse in pain. His frustration is interrupted by a neighbor's loud shouting, a common and irritating occurrence in his cheap housing complex.
Gu-chan winces as the man in room 304 continues his aggressive screaming, echoing the daily chaos of the building.
With a heavy thud, Gu-chan punches the wall and shouts back, demanding that his loud neighbor finally be quiet. The shirtless man flexes with rage, exchanging heated insults through the wall with the person he considers a complete psycho. He sits on his bed with a sigh, acknowledging that the constant noise is the real reason his room is so cheap. Turning his attention back to his phone, Gu-chan notes that the filming and meeting schedules are actually quite reasonable. He stands up with renewed energy, thanking the gods for a chance to finally move out of his current dump. Gu-chan makes a phone call to Jia, inquiring about the room and board options mentioned in the new contract. The scene shifts to a modern, luxurious apartment building featuring rooftop gardens and sleek, professional architecture. Gu-chan stands outside looking nervous and sweaty, his attention captured by a sudden voice calling out his name. Jia opens the door with a warm smile, wearing a simple gray dress, and welcoming him to the new space. The black-haired woman looks bright and inviting as she stands in the doorway, happy to see him arrive. A sudden whoosh of heat hits Gu-chan as his face turns bright red, finally realizing what living together actually implies. The gray-haired man stands frozen in a solid block of ice, paralyzed by the sheer shock of their new arrangement. He immediately declares his intention to return to his old room, unable to handle the pressure of the situation. Gu-chan panics internally, questioning how they could trust each other enough to recklessly cohabitate without considering the consequences. He tries to rationalize that she likely sees him only as a colleague, yet he remains deeply flustered and conflicted. Peeking through his fingers with a blushing face, he struggles to contain his growing secret feelings for the beautiful woman. He admits to himself that he really likes her, which only makes the idea of living together feel more insane. Despair takes over as he lists his many burdens, including his lack of savings and his responsibility toward his young siblings. A sudden, sharp realization strikes him, his eyes widening as he processes the gravity of the life he leads. He imagines a bleak, snowy future where they have a child and struggle in poverty, fueling his intense anxiety. In his dark vision, his shivering family begs for help while Gu-chan admits he is not ready for such responsibility. He vows not to become a failure like his father, while Jia watches him with a quiet and concerned expression. Gu-chan brushes his hair back, trying to regain his composure despite the overwhelming stress of the morning's revelations. He stands tall beside Jia, looking somber while she holds his hand and looks up at him with expectation. The man's face turns a deep pink once more as he struggles to articulate his thoughts in the tense silence. Jia looks up with a wide-eyed, questioning gaze, asking for clarification as he stammers through his explanation. Gu-chan looks away, covering his face in embarrassment as he begins to apologize and reject her lodging offer. A sharp zing of shock hits Jia, her face turning pale as she frantically asks why he is suddenly changing his mind. The scene reveals a beautifully cleaned, modern living room that Jia meticulously prepared just for his comfort. Jia's face droops in cartoonish sadness while they hold hands, both of them overwhelmed by their mutual disappointment and tears. The scene shifts to an older woman with permed hair and heavy makeup looking startled as she peers from behind a desk. Carrying his bags, Gu-chan prepares to check out of his depressing living situation at the reception desk. He waves a final goodbye to the manager, clearly eager to leave the unpleasant environment behind. The thought of returning to his cramped goshiwon fills the gray-haired man with overwhelming dread and exhaustion. A visual of a dirty shared fridge reveals a glaring gap where his hard-earned meal was stolen. Devastated by the theft, Guchan clutches his chest, lamenting the loss of the food he worked for. Despite the miserable conditions, he remains stubbornly resolute in his decision not to live with Jia. Lying on his bed, he tries to convince himself that skipping meals is a familiar and manageable struggle. A top-down view emphasizes the suffocatingly small and broken room that serves as his current home. Hunger finally begins to erode his pride as he lies awake, staring blankly at the ceiling in despair. He worries about his siblings, Hei-in and Hei-chan, hoping they ate well despite his own meager resources. Guchan rolls over, clutching his pillow as he continues to grapple with his difficult life choices and responsibilities. Doubts about his future as a YouTuber plague his mind, making him question if he can truly succeed. Curled under his blanket in a tiny, shivering ball, he desperately hopes this new venture will bring wealth. Looking physically and emotionally drained, he stares into the distance with a look of pure exhaustion. He imagines providing a better life for his siblings, wishing they could join the academies other children enjoy. His thoughts linger on his brother's potential, wondering if sports might be a better fit for the boy. The silence of his room is shattered by the obnoxious, echoing laughter of his neighbors through the walls. Violent threats and insults fly between the residents of rooms 302 and 304, causing Guchan more stress. He sighs, recognizing the familiar voice of his neighbor, while a cacophony of profanity fills the air. The scene shifts as a cheerful Jia claps her hands together, looking delighted to see him again. Seated in her modern space, Guchan formally agrees to their partnership while she offers a warm welcome. An awkward flush creeps across his face as he realizes the living space is actually an unused office. Jia begins explaining the basic house rules while the gray-haired man listens with his jacket casually draped. A list of his minimal belongings highlights his impoverished lifestyle, surprising Jia with his lack of necessities. He expresses his sincere gratitude for the lodging, feeling slightly out of place in such a high-end environment. The sleek, professional design of the office space stands in stark contrast to his former derelict living quarters. Guchan gazes at the stylish loft area, overwhelmed by the sheer quality and comfort of his new surroundings. Jia smiles warmly at his reaction, genuinely happy that he finds the apartment to his liking. To celebrate their new partnership, she heads toward the kitchen to retrieve some drinks for a toast. Sparkles surround Jia as she presents 2 green cans, eager to share a commemorative moment with him. She offers one of the cans to Guchan, who looks at the beverage with sudden, intense focus. His eyes narrow in realization as he identifies the drink as alcohol, causing him to pause. Sensing his hesitation, Jia's cheerful expression falters as she realizes she may have made a mistake. She asks tentatively if he dislikes drinking, feeling embarrassed for assuming he would want to celebrate this way. A look of sincere regret washes over her face as she quickly apologizes for her thoughtless assumption. Jia becomes flustered and apologetic, while a shocked Guchan stares at her in genuine surprise. He looks at her with a soft, thoughtful expression, touched by her sudden concern for his preferences. Jia stands frozen with the cans, memories of her emotional outbursts flashing briefly in the background. Reaching out, Guchan takes the can from her hand, his expression softening as he accepts her gesture. She tells him not to force himself, but he insists that it isn't an issue for him. Jia watches with wide-eyed anticipation as he prepares to open the can and join her in drinking. With a sharp, satisfying crack, the tab is pulled back and the commemorative drink is finally opened. Guchan takes a sip, deciding that a little celebration won't hurt after such a long, stressful day. A romantic vision of them cuddling flashes through his mind, making him wonder what might have happened. Warm light fills the room as their conversation continues, signaling the start of their new shared journey. Sitting close together, they drink and chat, with Guchan animatedly defending himself against her playful accusations.
Relaxed and smiling, the gray-haired man enjoys his drink, finally finding a moment of genuine peace and comfort. Gia looks at him with intrigue as he speaks about his past athletic abilities with newfound confidence. He leans in close while taking a sip, causing Gia to blush as the physical distance between them shrinks. Gu-chan looks directly at her with a teasing, confident gaze, fully embracing the playful energy of the moment. Gia looks up at Gu-chan with a stunned expression, her voice trailing off as she prepares to speak. Suddenly grabbing his hand, the black-haired woman expresses shock at how incredibly dry and rough his skin feels. She meticulously inspects his cracked palms, wondering if the harsh weather or his demanding job caused such damage. Gu-chan remains silent and flustered, his face turning pink as he avoids her intense and caring gaze. Gia leans in close, asking why he has gone quiet while he secretly admires her beauty in his thoughts. Stammering through his embarrassment, the gray-haired man tries to find the right words to explain his sudden bashfulness. He admits that having a woman touch him feels entirely new and fascinating, causing a surge of internal nervousness. Looking up at him with genuine curiosity, Gia tilts her head and asks what he finds so fascinating about it. They sit closely on the floor over snacks and drinks, the physical distance between them continuing to shrink. A close-up reveals their hands resting together, highlighting the contrast between her smooth skin and his rough working hands. Gu-chan compares her soft hands to his younger siblings, Hei-en and Hei-chan, noting how delicate they feel. Gia laughs softly and pulls back slightly, playfully mentioning that his touch is actually quite ticklish. Despite feeling a bit strange, she attempts to steer the conversation back to a more normal topic. Her eyes widen with a sudden spark of excitement as she processes a new and playful thought. Gia suddenly lunges forward to hug him, her tipsy behavior catching the gray-haired man completely off guard. Slumping against his chest, she sleepily declares that the alcohol has finally won and she needs to rest. Gu-chan holds her gently as they both laugh, despite her teasing him about his silly notions of manliness. The next morning, Gu-chan splashes water on his face, horrified by the memory of drunkenly sharing a bed. Staring intensely into the mirror, he laments the scary power of alcohol and the impulsive choices it caused. He leans against the sink in a state of existential dread, his muscular back tensed from the morning's stress. A sudden sound from the other room breaks his concentration, making him pause as he prepares to face her. Gia appears with a startled yelp, clumsily clutching several empty beer cans as she realizes he is already awake. A frantic blur of movement ensues as Gia rushes to clean the apartment before Gu-chan can leave for work. He apologizes for his haste, but she cheerfully waves him off, encouraging him to head out for his shift. Now dressed in his dark work jumpsuit, Gu-chan stops at the door when Gia calls out to him. Peeking shyly from behind a wooden divider, the black-haired woman watches him with a soft and lingering expression.
She wishes him a good day and tells him to be careful, her warm smile following him out.
Gu-chan smiles back over his shoulder, telling her to take it easy before he finally exits the apartment. A loud thud echoes through the hallway as Gia slams the door, leaving her alone with her racing thoughts. She remains hidden behind the partition, silent and paralyzed by the sheer awkwardness of their morning interaction. Gia panics internally, questioning if he even cared about their proximity or if she simply imagined the entire night. The scene shifts to Gu-chan's heavy black boots as he steps out onto the cold tiles of the hallway. He collapses against the door in a daze, overwhelmed by the feeling of someone finally seeing him off. The word cute repeats in his mind as he struggles to process how much Gia's farewell affected him. He stares into space, reflecting on how strange it feels to have someone waiting for him at home. Sitting alone in the hallway, a glowing heart appears over his chest, signaling his growing affection for his partner.
At the construction site, his coworkers surprise him with a party hat, jokingly celebrating his retirement to YouTube.
The older men blow party whistles and present a cake, cheering for his upcoming debut as a content creator.
Gu-chan irritably tosses the hat aside, insisting there is no such thing as retirement, and they need to work.
He walks away from the festivities, grumbling that he will likely be stuck at the construction site forever. His coworkers watch him go with disappointed sighs, lamenting that they bought the celebratory cake for absolutely nothing.
An older, balding coworker suddenly screams his name with tears in his eyes, demanding Gu-chan's full attention.
The workers bombard him with frantic questions, shocked that he hasn't officially joined Jia's successful YouTube channel yet.
They surround him in a comedic frenzy, unable to believe he would turn down such a lucrative and perfect opportunity.
One man screams at him to say something, while Gu-chan stoically ignores the chaos and pulls on his gloves.
The workplace banter turns personal as they trade insults about going bald while Gu-chan tries to end the conversation.
During a break, Gu-chan admits he said yes impulsively, but expresses deep doubt about his own talent and potential. His coworker enthusiastically insists they will be a massive success, noting that Jia's subscribers skyrocketed after their first stream.
Seated on empty drums, Gu-chan asks for clarification on what blowing up means, earning a playful insult from his friend.
Gu-chan takes a quiet puff of his cigarette, listening as his coworker prepares to give him more career advice. A round-faced coworker in a white hard hat laughs boisterously while congratulating Gu-chan on his new start.
Sitting on barrels, the gray-haired man humbles himself as his coworker encourages him to chase his dreams.
Walking home, Gu-chan checks his phone and decides to share a simple recipe with his mother.
He thinks about Jia's content style, realizing his rough hands are visible as he reaches for his phone.
Resting in a black tank top, the gray-haired man contemplates searching for Jia's channel to understand her work.
A loud bang startles Gu-chan as a black-haired woman in a white shirt bursts into the room. She screams Jia's name frantically, unaware of Gu-chan's presence while he tries to finish dressing.
The long-haired woman freezes, her eyes widening as she realizes she has intruded on a shirtless stranger. An awkward silence hangs in the air as the two stare at each other. Gu-chan, halfway through dressing.
The woman stands paralyzed by the door, wondering who this man could possibly be in Jia's home.
Identified as Go Arin, Jia's manager and editor, she quickly apologizes while looking flustered and holding her phone.
Gu-chan tries to remain calm, dismissively telling the embarrassed editor that such misunderstandings happen.
Go Arin expresses her concern, asking if he knows why Jia hasn't picked up her phone since yesterday.
She looks skeptical as she processes his vague answer, sensing that he might be hiding something from her. The two exchange formal introductions, with the gray-haired man identifying himself as the person known as Tukbaek. After answering a call from his mother, Gu-chan asks if it's okay for Arin to wait while he works. Go Arin watches him talk to his mother, her expression softening as she waits in the modern kitchen.
She clenches her phone in frustration, realizing how awkward the situation has become for her.
Overwhelmed by the chaotic morning, Go Arin screams internally, desperately wanting to forget the embarrassing encounter. Jia suddenly appears behind the wooden divider, a loud cry of his name echoing through the apartment.
Gu-chan looks back with a tired, slightly annoyed expression as Jia finally shows her face.
Jia stands before him, looking nervous and disheveled, repeating again in her head as she faces him.
The gray-haired man sighs and apologizes for the mess, explaining that he should have informed Arin beforehand.
Standing close to him, Jia insists it was her mistake and worries if he is exhausted from work. He gently holds her hands, reassuring her that mistakes happen and everything will eventually settle down. Jia blushes as she stares up at his face, deeply touched by his kind words and gentle touch.
Gu-chan looks back at her with a soft and calm expression, the atmosphere between them growing warmer. Gia nods frantically, her face flushing pink as she tries to find her voice in his presence.
The intense moment ends as they both agree to stop the constant stream of apologies. Aaron observes the pair from the side with a suspicious look, noticing their lingering physical contact. The trio gathers around a laptop to begin planning Gia's channel strategy, with Aaron typing away.
Gia proposes that Gu-chan should be the official channel owner to keep their professional partnership clean. He looks hesitant, attempting to discuss a fairer revenue split instead of her generous initial offer.
Gu-chan suggests a 6-4 split, which causes both Gia and Aaron to stare at him in surprise.
Gia looks at him with admiration, realizing he values her existing popularity and contribution over the money.
Aaron interjects from the side, suggesting that even an 8-2 or 9-1 split would be better for him.
Gia enthusiastically writes down ideas for their collaboration while the gray-haired man looks on with skepticism.
He decides to just be grateful that she compromised at a 7-3 split for his peace of mind. Gu-chan takes over the technical side, opening the laptop to begin the most important part of the setup.
He shows Gia's established YouTube profile on the screen, discussing the need for brand consistency in their work.
Aaron points upward, excitedly suggesting a trendy channel name based on their popular stream.
Gia offers her own bubbly suggestions, leaning into the cute and romantic vibe of their partnership. More playful name ideas appear above the couch as Gia continues to brainstorm with great excitement.
Gu-chan makes a comically disgusted face, thinking that their suggested channel names are absolutely terrible.
Gia suggests Gu-chan Gia, a simple and direct name that catches the gray-haired man completely by surprise.
Aaron praises the suggestion, noting that Gia has a good sense for naming their new venture.
The new Gu-chan Jia channel setup is finally completed, marking the official beginning of their joint journey. Gia claps her hands in delight, looking at Gu-chan with a bright and hopeful expression.
The gray-haired man looks back at her warmly, acknowledging that he will be counting on her support.
Aaron works diligently at the laptop while the two partners pledge to learn and work hard together. Gu-chan leans in close at the kitchen table, asking Gia a casual question that catches her off guard.
Gia's face flushes a deep pink as she realizes how close the gray-haired man's face has suddenly become.
Leaning on his arm, Gu-chan looks relaxed while explaining his decision to join her channel for the right reasons.
Gia accuses him of teasing her, but Gu-chan playfully insists that their previous stream was actually a success. As the duo bickers playfully, Aaron works quietly at her laptop, her presence grounding the chaotic morning meeting.
Aaron interrupts their banter to ask a pointed question about the true nature of their relationship status.
Hiding behind her laptop, the dark-haired manager blushes as she probes for details about what happened between them.
Gu-chan and Gia stare back in silent confusion as Aaron explains her need for professional clarity for the channel.
Gia's heart beats rapidly as she recalls their closeness, worried that Aaron has already figured out her secrets. Gia panics internally, realization hitting her that she had unconsciously leaned toward Gu-chan during their previous photo. Gu-chan's face reddens as he tries to maintain his composure while facing Aaron's relentless and awkward questioning. Aaron's screen reveals a series of frantic, unanswered messages, fueling her suspicion that something significant happened last night. The kitchen remains tense as the three of them navigate the increasingly uncomfortable discussion about potential romance. Erin makes a heart gesture with her fingers, teasingly suggesting the two have already reached a romantic milestone.
The editor's teasing reaches a peak as she suggests their relationship has already progressed much further than they admit.
Gu-chan adopts a deadpan expression, flatly and sternly denying any such rumors to his persistent manager.
He dismisses the modern slang, emphasizing that their connection is strictly professional and absolutely nothing more. Gia slumps in her chair, feeling a sharp internal pang of rejection from Gu-chan's overly emphatic denial. Sweat beads on Guchan's face as he struggles with the intense pressure of maintaining their professional facade.
Misinterpreting his intensity as genuine disgust, Jia's spirit sinks as she concludes he hates being associated with her. Guchan screams internally, realizing that a strong denial is the only way to protect their professional partnership.
Jia officially proposes a duo concept, abandoning the couple channel idea to save her own wounded feelings.
Aaron agrees to the pivot, suggesting they focus on vlogs and casual everyday content for the viewers instead.
Guchan looks completely stunned by the sudden change, his eyes widening as the couple's concept is scrapped.
He wonders if he completely misunderstood Jia's feelings, or if she is simply pulling away from him now.
Jia reminds herself not to get carried away, deciding that to Guchan, she is strictly a business partner. Both partners wallow in their own self-pity, feeling pathetic for misreading the situation so spectacularly.
A heavy silence falls over the table as Jia and Guchan retreat into their own hurt feelings and misunderstandings.
Aaron continues typing, secretly amused by the tangled mess of emotions developing right in front of her.
The manager smiles mischievously, eager to watch how long the pair will struggle before admitting their true feelings.
Aaron closes her laptop with a satisfied snap, finalizing the channel concept as the meeting officially ends. The group sits together in the spacious kitchen, a professional agreement reached despite the lingering personal tension.
Out on the street, the black-haired woman looks surprised as someone suddenly calls out her name. Guchan, dressed in a black jacket, admits he was thrown off by her professional distance during the planning.
Jia explains her content strategy for their first video, trying to keep things lighthearted and funny for the fans.
Guchan realizes Jia is genuinely trying to ensure their relationship remains purely professional in the public eye.
They walk past a bus stop, Jia suggesting a celebratory dinner after their successful visit to the hospital.
As they cross the street, Guchan offers his jacket, but Jia politely declines while filming their walk together.
Jia excitedly shares a video from the doctor's office, eager to show Guchan how they look on screen. The video shows an adorable, small-scale recreation of their meeting with the doctor, marking their first official content.
Guchan admits the experience is awkward, while Jia laughs warmly at his discomfort with his new popularity.
A sudden, firm grip on her sleeve interrupts Jia, as a stranger with long pink nails stops her.
A blonde fan gasps in delight, recognizing the famous YouTuber Jia right in the middle of the street.
Jia looks startled by the fan's aggressive physical contact, while Guchan's protective instincts immediately kick in.
A close-up highlights the fan's tight grip on Jia's wrist, emphasizing the intrusive nature of the unexpected encounter. Guchan glares at the fan, deeply offended by the rude and forceful way she is treating his partner.
His expression turns fierce and threatening as he prepares to intervene in the uncomfortable and pushy fan interaction. Despite the awkwardness, Jia poses for a selfie while the gray-haired man stands guard right behind her. The fan cheerily waves goodbye, leaving Guchan to process the strange and intrusive reality of Jia's public life. Walking away, the blonde girl brags on her phone about meeting Jia, unaware of the tension she caused.
Guchan checks on the dark-haired woman, who apologizes for intruding on his personal space earlier.
The gray-haired man looks slightly overwhelmed as he accepts her apology during their outing together. Jia shifts the mood, energetically insisting they hurry to dinner before she starves.
Guchan maintains a deadpan expression as his partner playfully threatens to leave him behind.
While filming their walk, Jia internally decides to ignore the earlier tension to maintain professional appearances.
Their channel content begins with Guchan enjoying a steak dinner, giving a thumbs up to the camera.
Jia records his meal with admiration, while he quietly finds her enthusiasm for the project adorable. The gray-haired man holds a forkful of food out, offering Jia a taste of his meal. Caught off guard by the intimate gesture, Jia stares in wide-eyed shock as her face flushes pink. Guchan urges her to stop filming and eat, prioritizing her energy over getting more footage. Her heart races with a quick thump-thump as he persistently offers her a piece of steak.
With a soft munch, Gia finally accepts the bite, her nerves peaking at the sudden closeness. He watches her eat, gently asking if the food is as tender as it looks. Gia tries to focus on the taste, but the overwhelming embarrassment of the moment makes it impossible. Panicked and needing an escape, Gia excuses herself to the restroom to calm her racing heart. Alone in the stall, she clutched her head, desperately reminding herself to focus strictly on work. Silence fills the room as Gia takes a long moment to collect her scattered thoughts and emotions. She winces at her blistered heel, realizing her new shoes are adding physical pain to her stress. Gia sighs, feeling dejected as she realizes Gu-chan seems completely uninterested in her as a person. Voices from the other side of the door recognize her, causing Gia to freeze in sudden fear. Two men outside the stall gossip about Gia's recent scandal and the man she is currently with. Overwhelmed by the situation, she collapses onto the seat with a heavy, exhausted sigh of distress. She realizes she's trapped in a unisex restroom while judgmental strangers wait just outside the door. Gia waits in agonizing silence, praying the gossiping men will leave so she can escape safely. Tension mounts as she stares at the shadows of feet lingering right outside her stall door. A sudden, sharp knock-knock echoes, making Gia gasp in fear as her heart nearly stops. Her pulse races with a frantic thump-thump, realizing the strangers are lingering directly in front of her. Terror grips her as she stays perfectly still, convinced her presence has been completely discovered. Gia's hand trembles on the door handle, preparing to defend her privacy if someone tries to enter. She internally begs the intruder to go away, her fear reaching a breaking point in the silence. Recognition flashes through her as she hears a familiar voice tentatively calling out from the other side. Gia calls his name in relief, realizing Gu-chan has come to find her in her moment of panic. He explains he was worried about her, his presence causing a sudden thud as she opens the door. Overcome with relief, Gia lunges forward and clings to Gu-chan's chest while her heart beats rapidly. Clinging to him, she confirms she's okay, her fear melting away in his protective embrace. Gia thanks him sincerely for finding her, while Gu-chan stands there looking stunned and deeply flustered.
He admits he followed her because he saw suspicious men trailing her, confirming his protective instincts were right.
Gu-chan looks down at her with pity, realizing the dark side of the fame she works so hard for. He gives her a gentle pat on the head, a tender gesture that sends Gia into a state of shock. Her face burns red as she screams internally, completely losing her composure from his affectionate touch. Gu-chan decides to exit the restroom first, unaware that the gossiping men are still nearby. From above, the group remains close in the narrow hall while strangers walk past, oblivious to the drama. They overhear the men outside speculating that their relationship is just a PR stunt to hide scandals. Gia's expression turns cold and annoyed as she listens to the strangers dissecting her personal life. Gu-chan's heart skips a beat with a sharp thump as Gia clenches her teeth in visible anger. The men outside continue their disrespectful banter, unaware that their targets are listening right behind them. Gia glares with intense determination, deciding she won't let their rude comments go without a fight. Gu-chan covers his face in a hand, struggling to process his own escalating and confusing emotions. His heart hammers with a loud thump-thump as he realizes a new, undeniable feeling is taking hold. A sudden, loud bang startles Gu-chan, snapping him out of his blushing daze as the situation intensifies. In the quiet bathroom, Gia catches Chan's reflection in the mirror, noticing his lingering blush as he stands frozen. Escorting her out, Gia mentions the cooling food, while Chan tries to shake off the awkward tension between them. A playful smirk dances on Gia's lips as she points out how much Chan seems to be enjoying himself. Leaning back, the black-haired woman teases him further, noting that his entire face has turned a bright, betraying red. Deflecting the observation, the gray-haired man urges her to move along while he struggles to maintain his failing composure. A nervous droplet of sweat rolls down Chan's cheek as he follows her, his heart still racing from her scrutiny. Tugging at his ear, Chan wonders internally if his embarrassment was really that obvious to her sharp, observant eyes. As Jia waits at the table, Chan's inner voice panics, terrified she might mistake his blushing for something more sinister. Walking beneath the night sky, Jia thanks him for dinner and promises to treat him to their next meal. Skeptical of their content, Chan questions if simple footage of a hospital visit and a meal can actually succeed. Jia offers a confident smile, assuring him that their genuine interaction is exactly what their audience wants to see. Over the cityscape, they discuss the editor's transformative power, noting Aaron's vital role in shaping their shared digital narrative. Jia pauses with a thoughtful expression, wondering aloud how they should capture the perfect ending for their first video. Leaning close, she whispers a secret suggestion into Chan's ear, her proximity sending a fresh wave of heat through him. Later, a recording light flickers as Chan attempts to film his solo review, looking incredibly stiff and visibly uncomfortable. Slumping on his couch, the gray-haired man stares at the camera, realizing that talking to a lens is surprisingly difficult. They agree to film separate, private reviews, promising not to watch each other's segments until the final edit is released. Chan gazes out his window, his curiosity piqued as he wonders what Jia could have possibly said about their time together. The phone screen captures a painfully awkward moment of Chan sitting in silence, struggling to find the right words. Alone in his dimly lit apartment, the weight of the day's events settles over him as he prepares for bed. The completed video, titled I Met Mr. TTUBK, goes live, featuring a thumbnail of the pair looking perfectly chaotic. In the bright studio, Aaron prepares the cameras for a special reaction video featuring the two nervous stars together. Jia watches the screen with wide eyes and a deepening blush as the chat's curiosity begins to flood in. On screen, the footage of their hospital trip plays, causing Chan to avert his eyes in a fit of embarrassment. Aaron grins mischievously, admitting that her role as editor allowed her to see all the juicy details early. Anticipation builds as Aaron prepares to reveal their genuine reactions to seeing each other's private thoughts for the first time. The playback begins, showing Chan's awkward initial recording, where he admits he thinks the camera is working just fine. Watching the footage, Jia gasps and covers her mouth, her eyes sparkling with a mix of shock and delight. Chan's composure shatters as he lets out a cartoony scream of betrayal, realizing his most embarrassing moments were kept in. Pointing at the laptop, he accuses Aaron of cruelty for ignoring his desperate pleas to cut his awkward rambling. Confusion turns to outrage when Chan realizes the video ended before showing Jia's review, prompting Aaron to explain herself. Aaron admits she scrapped Jia's footage for being too boring, leaving a fuming Chan to protest the obvious unfairness. Turning his frustration toward Jia, Chan demands to know her true feelings about meeting him since the video failed. Jia snaps back with an embarrassed flush, telling the gray-haired man that he is being far too intense and demanding. She fires back a sharp reminder that he couldn't even manage to call her pretty when they were together. Aaron checks her phone with a start, noticing that the online community is already buzzing with comparisons of their behavior. The pair sits in a tense, silent standoff at the table, while Aaron stands behind them, sensing the mounting friction. Noticing the sudden change in atmosphere, Chan leans in to ask if something is wrong with the video's reception. Aaron's hand flies to her mouth in genuine shock as she stares at the rapidly climbing numbers on the screen. A screenshot reveals their video has exploded in popularity, racking up hundreds of thousands of views in just 1 hour. Jia and Aaron huddle over the phone in a state of ecstatic disbelief, while Chan watches from his seat. The gray-haired man looks on with a confused tilt of his head,
completely unfamiliar with the term trending.
Their excitement overflows as the video officially hits the #1 spot, a rare and monumental achievement for the team. Erin beams as she reads the positive feedback, noting how much the audience loves their fresh and funny chemistry. Reading the comments, Chan is baffled to find himself described as a charmingly clueless bad boy by their new fans.
Aaron remarks on the immense potential of their channel, predicting that their popularity has only just begun to soar. Tears of relief and joy stream down Gia's face as she embraces Aaron, while Chan looks on, still processing everything. Rubbing the back of his neck, the gray-haired man realizes that their chaotic experiment has actually changed their lives forever. An unseen clip shows Gia's intense, heartfelt admission that she feels incredibly lucky to have met him despite her decline. Shifting back to business, Gia consults her phone and discusses upcoming makeover applications with a supportive and focused Aaron. The gray-haired man contemplates trying a new content format while checking his phone as Aaron stands nearby. A chat group for a hiking club overflows with messages teasing the man about his recent video debut. Guchan stares at his phone in disbelief, feeling a wave of shame as family friends celebrate his popularity. He decides to ignore the embarrassing messages, turning away as the black-haired woman checks her own device. A close-up shows the black-haired woman glancing at her phone screen while holding it with both hands. Aaron looks surprised as she shows her phone to the other woman, revealing an unexpected notification on the screen. Guchan notices a private message from Aaron containing a video and wonders why she is being so secretive. He looks suspicious and slightly nervous, questioning the mysterious way his editor is sharing new content with him. Surrounded by floating hearts, Guchan's face turns bright red as he receives a notification for a private video. The message claims the video is for his eyes only, leaving Guchan panicking over the suggestive preview of Gia. In the quiet of the night, a rhythmic thump-thump of a racing heart echoes through the dark, empty room. Lying in bed, the gray-haired man stares at his phone with a flushed face as his heart hammers loudly. His hand trembles over the play button, torn between his professional boundaries and the urge to watch the video. Guchan breathes heavily, his face completely crimson as his pulse continues a frantic thump-thump against the silence of night. With a hesitant touch, a soft click sounds as he finally presses play to reveal the hidden footage. The video begins with a close-up of Gia's lips as she asks the camera about her makeup. Gia appears on screen looking shy and flustered, struggling to find the right words for her private vlog. Guchan watches in shock as Gia confesses on camera that she genuinely enjoyed their recent outing together. She continues her heartfelt recap of their dinner and hospital visit, her face glowing with a sweet, unmistakable blush. Gia admits that spending time with Guchan was the highlight of her day, making his heart skip a beat. The video captures her nervous habit of twirling her hair as she struggles to express her growing feelings. Guchan's bed vibrates from his intense blushing as he processes the raw honesty of the video he just watched. He remains wide-eyed and frozen in bed, his mind racing with the implications of her private confession. He tries to rationalize her words as mere business strategy, yet his heart continues to pound with heavy thumps. Guchan clutches his chest, realizing that his own heart is reacting far more strongly than a professional partner's should. On a rare Saturday off, Guchan takes his two younger siblings out for a day of fun and shopping. His younger brother begs to play games, while his sister, Haein, looks longingly at the beautiful shop displays. Exhausted, Guchan mentally lists all the school supplies they need to buy while trying to manage the kids' energy. A loud bang sounds as Guchan treats his brother to a shooting game at the arcade to keep him occupied. While his brother is busy, Guchan looks around for Haein, hoping she hasn't wandered too far. He finds the little girl standing perfectly still, mesmerized by a display of pretty dresses and accessories. Hae-in's heart goes kongduk as she falls in love with the stylish outfit she sees in the window.
She examines the beautiful hairpins and bows, but hesitates when she considers how expensive they might be. Gu-chan surprises his sister by appearing right behind her, noticing the specific items she has been eyeing.
He asks her if she wants the dress, but Hae-in quickly denies it to avoid being a burden.
Gu-chan encourages her to pick something out, reminding her that she needs something nice for her school ceremony. He holds up a bright blue outfit, suggesting she try it on to see if it suits her. Hae-in looks at the garment with wide, uncertain eyes, secretly wishing she could have it, but feeling conflicted.
She checks the price tag and immediately decides it's far too much to ask her brother to buy. Seeing her hesitation, Gu-chan gently tells her that if she likes it, he will buy it for her. He points her toward the fitting rooms, offering to wait outside while she tries on the new dress. Hae-in's face lights up with joy as she accepts the generous present from her big brother. She rushes toward the fitting room with a happy cheer while Gu-chan watches her from a nearby seat.
The gray-haired man waits patiently, looking up as he anticipates seeing his sister's reaction to the new clothes.
He lets out a tired sigh, leaning his head on his hand as the long day finally catches up. The younger brother bluntly tells Hae-in that the dress looks weird, causing her immediate distress.
Gu-chan tries to balance the mood by giving an enthusiastic thumbs up and insisting the dress looks great.
Hae-in glares in confusion, frustrated by the conflicting opinions of her two brothers while wearing the yellow dress. She stands in the middle of the boutique, wishing she could get some actually helpful fashion advice.
Hae-in screams in frustration at her brother's uselessness while the boy picks his nose and Gu-chan remains cluelessly supportive. Hae-in stares with a gaze of intense, fiery determination, clearly planning her next bold move.
The young boy cheerfully asks his older brother to borrow his phone for a moment.
The scene shifts to a luxurious, modern living space filled with elegant furniture and a stylish staircase.
Gia sighs at her computer, frustrated that her hard work on the stories isn't getting the right results. A sudden sound makes the black-haired woman jump in surprise, her hand flying to her mouth.
Her heart hammers with a frantic thump-thump as she looks toward the source of the unexpected noise.
Gu-chan stands calmly in the store, unaware of the chaotic encounter that is about to unfold.
Shock washes over them both as they lock eyes, stunned to find each other in the boutique.
Gu-chan's eyes widen in disbelief as he realizes the famous star is standing right in front of him. The two siblings lunge forward with happy shouts, clinging to Gia as they welcome her with open arms. Gia stands frozen in confusion as the children shower her with affection and tell her how much they missed her. Gu-chan scolds his younger siblings, telling them to stop being so rude to their guest immediately.
Gia watches as Gu-chan calls them back sternly, her expression reflecting her lingering surprise at the encounter. Hae-in and Hae-chan beam with pure, unadulterated joy, thrilled to be spending time with their favorite person. With a firm hand on his sister's head, Gu-chan forces the kids to apologize for their sudden outburst.
Gia smiles warmly and waves off the apology, admitting she was actually happy to see the children again. The boy screams in protest, claiming he wasn't the one who sent the confusing text message earlier. Gu-chan grabs his brother by the hood, warning him that he's in big trouble for his behavior. He explains the misunderstanding to Gia, apologizing profusely for the children's interference with his phone. The scene shifts to the shop interior as they discuss their reasons for being at the mall.
Gu-chan looks completely drained from hours of parenting, and Gia suggests he take a well-deserved break.
He asks if she came to buy supplies because of a school list, seeking some practical advice. Gia shares her research, explaining that the school provides most supplies and listing the essentials they actually need. Gu-chan is visibly relieved to hear he can finish sooner while the kids play basketball in the background. He looks uncertainly at the different backpack options, struggling to decide which one would be best for them. Gia steps in with a bright smile, holding up two stylish bags that are perfect for the kids. The children's eyes sparkle with excitement as they admire the cool new backpacks Gia picked out. While Gia and the kids celebrate, Guchan's face contorts into a hilarious mess of extreme embarrassment. The group moves outside to a sunlit plaza where the children cheer and reach for colorful balloons. Gia takes a large bite of a soft-serve ice cream cone, looking completely content with the treat. Sitting on a park bench, the two adults rest while the children play with their new backpacks.
She tells him to relax and stop acting so formal, as it's making the situation feel awkward.
Guchan points out that she has a bit of ice cream stuck on her lip with a slight smirk. She tries to wipe it away, but Guchan watches as she misses the spot entirely. In a sudden, bold move, he reaches out and wipes the smudge from her face himself. Guchan turns away with a bright red face, stunned by his own impulsive and protective gesture. A quiet moment settles over them as they sit together in the beautiful, warm glow of the afternoon. Gia's heart races with a steady thump-thump as she processes the intimate touch she just received. She notes his blushing face and realizes that he seems genuinely embarrassed by what he did. A daring thought crosses her mind as she wonders if he might actually have feelings for her. Determined to test the waters, she nervously calls out his name to grab his attention. She asks if he finally saw the message Hae-in sent that caused her to rush over. Gia looks down with a blush, waiting for his reaction to the revelation about the text. Guchan stares at his phone in total shock, finally seeing the message where his sister said she missed Gia. He realizes Hae-in sent a text pretending to be him, causing a massive romantic misunderstanding. Gia sweats nervously, wondering if he is upset or simply stunned by the contents of the message. They both sit in silence, faces burning red as the gravity of the misunderstanding settles between them. Gia internally screams in panic, convinced that the situation has become far more complicated than she expected. The younger brother interrupts the tense moment, shouting that he wants to go play more games. Guchan is snapped back to reality by the boy's voice, ending the heavy atmosphere on the bench. Guchan looks downward with a somber expression, acknowledging that he can never lead the life of a normal guy in love. Sitting on a park bench, the gray-haired man is snapped back to his cruel reality by his demanding younger siblings. Back at the construction site, Guchan reflects on the brief taste of normalcy he shared during his time with Gia. A loud bang sounds as Guchan is barked at to dismantle the structure and clean up the building materials. Looking out over the construction scaffolding, the gray-haired man is harshly reminded of his actual place in the world. Guchan wipes sweat from his brow, overwhelmed by a deep sense of misery regarding his current life and status. An older construction worker reacts with wide-eyed shock to Guchan's strange behavior and intense work ethic on the site. The worker tells Guchan to go home, noting that he is pushing himself too hard with constant overtime work. As Guchan walks away, the older man watches him silently, frustratedly calling the hard-working young man a jerk. Guchan carries a heavy metal pipe across the site, determined to work even as he's asked what is wrong. He focuses intensely on his labor, believing that hard work is the only way to keep his useless thoughts away. Guchan wipes his face, mentally lecturing himself to know his place and recognize the limits of his social standing. A chibi illustration depicts Guchan as a frog in a well, symbolizing his narrow world and limited future prospects. The text explains how he was forced to become the head of his family at a tragically young age. From the bottom of the well, the gray-haired boy looks up at the distant light, accepting his burden-filled fate. High above the city, a construction crane moves against the sky as work continues at a frantic, noisy pace. Gravity takes over as several heavy metal pipes slide and fall toward the ground with a sudden, dangerous clatter. Guchan sits on the ground, breathless, while his supervisor screams at him about the near-fatal accident he almost caused.
He stares blankly into space, realizing his attempts to shake off his thoughts nearly resulted in a terrible tragedy.
The worker yells directly into Gu-chan's face, demanding to know where his head is after calling him multiple times.
He warns Gu-chan to get it together, emphasizing just how dangerous his lack of focus is on the job. Sitting amidst the construction debris, a humbled Gu-chan offers a quiet apology for his distraction as coworkers look on. Back at home, the gray-haired man looks serious and determined as he processes the events of his difficult day.
He realizes he tweaked his back during his fall, worrying about how it will affect his upcoming skateboard shoot.
Gu-chan stares at his phone in hesitation, feeling awkward about contacting Jia after everything that has happened between them.
Jia looks at her own phone with a surprised expression, wondering if her friend will handle the current situation.
Aaron shouts in alarm, informing Jia that Chan got hurt during the shoot, causing immediate panic and concern. A humorous text exchange follows where Jia decides to make porridge and visit the injured man at his home.
The black-haired woman carefully prepares a spoonful of porridge, offering it to the injured and flustered gray-haired man.
Jia feeds the porridge to Gu-chan, who looks embarrassed but grateful as he accepts her unexpected and kind care. They sit together in a quiet moment, though Jia's mind races with confusion about a potentially misdirected text message. Jia asks if the food tastes okay, while Gu-chan internally struggles with his hesitation to face her directly. She gazes at the bowl of porridge, worriedly asking if it tastes bad because of his lack of verbal response. Gu-chan thanks her for going so far for him, while Jia cheerfully reminds him to eat so he can take medicine. The scene shifts to the bedroom where Jia offers to apply a medicinal patch to his injury later that evening. Jia holds the medicinal patch with a deep, visible blush, her heart racing at the thought of the intimate task. Shirtless and facing away, Gu-chan's mind spirals with embarrassment as he prepares for her to touch his bare back. After applying one patch, he asks for her help with his lower back, causing Jia to react with startled shock. Jia's hands tremble slightly as she carefully presses the medicinal patch onto the gray-haired man's muscular lower back. A sudden realization or feeling makes the black-haired woman gasp, her eyes widening as she looks at the man's back. Gu-chan flinches at her touch, a small sound of surprise escaping him as he reacts to her close proximity.
Jia looks up toward the stairs, her face flushed red as she questions the confusing situation they are now in.
Gu-chan sweats profusely, his face turning a bright crimson as he realizes this intimate moment simply cannot happen.
He clutches the bedsheets with white-knuckled intensity, internally screaming that their relationship cannot continue in this complicated direction.
Jia suddenly leans in extremely close, calling out his name and breaking through his wall of panicked internal thoughts.
Sitting on the floor near the stairs, the shirtless man cowers while Jia asks him to look at her.
She laughs gently at his extreme reaction, asking why he is so startled by her presence and helpful gesture.
Gu-chan stares back at her with wide, watering eyes and a face dripping with sweat from his intense nervousness. The black-haired woman remains leaning in close to the gray-haired man, her sudden proximity leaving him completely stunned. Gu-chan's face is a mess of sweat and blushing embarrassment as he remains frozen under her direct and searching gaze. Gu-chan's face is a sweaty mask of panic and wide-eyed shock as he contemplates ending the overwhelming situation.
Jia's hand gently touches the bruised skin of the man's bare chest, insisting that this treatment is necessary.
The black-haired woman leans in close to the shirtless man, expressing how upsetting it is to see his condition.
A chibi diagram shows Gu-chan covered in red scratches as Jia scolds him for ignoring the many wounds on his body.
Jia looks directly at him with a serious, focused expression, urging him to apply ointment immediately to prevent permanent scarring. Gu-chan drifts into a stunned, faraway gaze, his face sporting a tiny, nervous smile as he processes her intense care.
In the kitchen, the gray-haired man frantically begs Jia to start treating his back first instead of his bare front. As the afternoon sun streams in, Jia sits on the couch behind the shirtless man to tend to his injured back.
The black-haired woman gazes at him from the side, softly asking if her presence or the treatment is making him feel uncomfortable. A pile of medicine boxes and ointments sits on the table while the man questions why such a massive supply is necessary. Jia firmly places her hand on his face, silencing his protests as he tries to claim he only needs a simple patch. Leaning in with a concerned look, the woman touches his face and informs him that he is currently running a fever. Gu-chan internally blames Jia's proximity for his rising temperature, while she panics and suggests a trip to the emergency room.
Now dressed in a black t-shirt, Gu-chan looks downcast, feeling guilty for his poor condition and the trouble he's caused.
Wearing pink dishwashing gloves and an apron, Jia cheerfully reassures him that the filming schedule can easily be changed. The gray-haired man looks somber as the woman tells him she's perfectly fine filming other content while he recovers. Jia ties her hair back, offering a sweet and genuine smile that radiates warmth and kindness toward the injured man.
Blushing furiously, Gu-chan watches her walk away, realizing that even his painful injuries pale in comparison to his growing feelings.
Night falls over the city, casting a quiet blue hue over the apartment buildings and the walkway below. Outside in the cold night air, Jia tells him to get inside while he stubbornly insists on waiting until she's in a taxi.
The gray-haired man tries to deny he's a patient, but Jia retorts that he is clearly burning up from his fever.
Gu-chan looks ahead with a thoughtful, serious expression as they walk together through the quiet, moonlit neighborhood. Jia's eyes widen in surprise as she asks for clarification, caught off guard by a sudden question from her companion. Focusing on their feet as they walk, Jia notes that he's never asked her such a personal question before. The black-haired woman smiles as she describes her plans to organize content and prepare more videos for her channel. Gu-chan listens as she details her nightly routine, and he responds that he'll be busy preparing for his own work.
Jia looks at him in total shock, gasping as she wonders how he could possibly know such specific details about her.
Gu-chan explains that he looked up her channel after hearing her mention it to their mutual acquaintance during a shoot.
Looking at her with genuine concern, the gray-haired man asks what has been weighing on her mind and causing her stress.
Jia offers a nervous, sweat-dropped smile, trying to downplay her worries by claiming they aren't a big deal.
A YouTube thumbnail for her channel, LBB, appears as Jia explains her content focuses on the dramatic stories of her subscribers. The woman explains that she works tirelessly to make the subscriber stories as exciting and viral as possible for her audience. Looking at the city lights, the gray-haired man reflects on his frustration at not understanding why her channel is struggling. He turns to her with a piercing gaze, questioning if she truly doesn't understand the real problem with her content. Jia looks back at him with a bewildered expression, her mouth slightly agape as she fails to grasp his meaning. The gray-haired man stares ahead with absolute conviction, stating firmly that he believes he has found the answer.
While walking, Gu-chan explains that he knows exactly why her channel is failing to meet the expectations of her viewers.
Chibi illustrations depict the channel's goal of transforming subscribers into idealized versions of themselves to satisfy a need for excitement.
Gu-chan recoils in shock as he imagines a version of Jia bluntly mocking his ignorance about the channel's failure. Jia stands outside in a black outfit, taking a deep, nervous breath as she prepares to film a revamped video. She looks off to the side with a determined expression, reminding herself that she has nothing left to lose. The black-haired woman greets a young man named Park Jinhan,
who reacts with startled surprise at her sudden appearance. Sitting together at a cafe, the nervous applicant admits he's very anxious about the upcoming transformation and the cold weather. The black-haired applicant mentions he heard the new content would be a significant departure from her previous videos. Gia clasps her hands together with an excited gasp, confirming that he is exactly right about the change in direction. Jinhan looks determined from the side, stating his desire to work hard and change his life through the project. Gia pumps her fists with a bright, motivated smile, promising to match his passion and work just as hard. The applicant waves his hands in frantic refusal as Gia presents him with a new, stylish outfit to wear. Holding her phone up to record, the black-haired woman encourages Jinhan to have more confidence in his appearance. Jinhan looks down at his baggy red jacket and oversized pants, struggling to believe her compliments about his good proportions. Gia offers stylish clothes to the black-haired Jinhan, but he waves his hands in frantic, self-doubting refusal. Jinhan continues to decline the outfits, shaking his head while insisting the trendy style doesn't suit him. The black-haired woman laughs nervously as the applicant admits he finds it impossible to imagine himself looking good. Looking at him, Gia realizes that convincing Jinhan to change his appearance will be a difficult challenge. A phone recording shows the two in chibi form, sitting defeated as Gia admits they bought nothing. Jinhan explains that while he trusts Gia, his deep lack of self-confidence makes the transformation process feel impossible. The black-haired woman listens intently as he confesses to feeling pathetic for being unable to complete the project. Jinhan looks downcast, suggesting that she should just tell her subscribers the truth about his inability to change. Sitting together on the steps, Gia gently questions why he initially chose to apply for her transformation content. Speech bubbles over the city background convey Gia's conviction that many people will support him once they hear. Gia turns to him with a serious, encouraging look, urging him to try one more time for himself. Jinhan looks away with a somber expression as memories of his painful past begin to resurface in detail. In a flashback, the man sits in military barracks, staring at his phone with a sense of deep anxiety. He reflects on how his 10-year relationship slowly withered during his military service due to silence and distance. A memory of a desperate call shows his girlfriend's cold excuses about being too busy with work and adjustment. Clutching his head in misery, Jinhan admits he foolishly ignored the obvious signs that their love was ending. He focused on his shoes, desperately hoping that returning home after his discharge would fix their broken bond. Returning in uniform with a bouquet, Jinhan arrives at her door only to face a cold, final reality. Flower petals scatter on the floor as he recalls her desire for marriage with a more prepared partner. Gia listens as he describes the lingering pain of being compared unfavorably to his ex-girlfriend's new partner. Looking at the city buildings, he recounts the disbelief he felt upon receiving her wedding invitation shortly after. Jinhan rubs his neck awkwardly, confessing that he applied to the show to make her finally feel regret. Gia places her hand on her chest, looking directly at him and asking for his complete, unwavering trust. Touched by her sincerity, a flush creeps onto Jinhan's face as he finds the courage to continue. Looking at his phone, Gu-chan reacts with wide-eyed shock at the video's dramatic and successful transformation results. The gray-haired man stares in disbelief, realizing the sleek man on screen is the same timid applicant. Gia's face appears in a mirror as she happily announces that Jinhan's hair transformation is finally complete. Jinhan looks stunningly different, sporting a modern haircut and a sophisticated black coat that radiates newfound confidence. A beautiful fountain glistens in the sun as the scene shifts to the day of the wedding ceremony. Wearing her bridal veil, the ex-girlfriend gasps in shock as she spots the transformed Jinhan standing before her. The groom enters with a cheerful smile, curiously asking his bride about the handsome stranger guest standing nearby. Jinhan remains cool and detached while the groom introduces himself and thanks him for attending their wedding.
Sitting in a taxi later, a jubilant Jinhan gives a thumbs up, finally feeling a sense of true closure.
Gia smiles warmly at him from the passenger seat, satisfied with the successful shoot and his emotional recovery.
Lying back, Gu-chan marvels at the amazing transformation and reflects on the fiery nature of the revenge. The gray-haired man looks slightly skeptical as he continues watching, noting how obvious the final results were. A sudden chime rings out, causing Gu-chan to look toward his apartment door with a confused expression. He walks barefoot across the room, wondering who could be visiting him so unexpectedly in the evening. Gia suddenly lunges forward and throws her arms around the shirtless man, catching him completely by surprise. Gu-chan's face turns a bright crimson as he stands frozen, stunned by the woman's sudden physical affection. The black-haired woman thanks him with intense emotion, her heart overflowing with gratitude for his helpful advice. As she clings to him, Gia explains that the revamped video response has been absolutely amazing for her. Gu-chan remains speechless, his eyes wide as he processes the warmth of her body against his own chest. Standing together by the stairs, Gia tells him that she owes this successful turning point entirely to him. A monochrome memory of his earlier mocking thoughts fades away as he realizes how much her joy matters. Gia leans back slightly, her face glowing with genuine happiness over the viral response to her new content. The black-haired woman repeats her heartfelt thanks, looking up at him with eyes full of deep appreciation. His hand rests tentatively on her waist as he reacts with a startled gasp at their sudden proximity. They share an intense, quiet moment, the air thick with tension as they stand locked in the embrace. Thump, thump. Heart beats wildly as he stares at her, unable to ignore the feelings growing between them. Gia realizes she clung to him out of excitement, her heart going thump-thump in the sudden, intimate silence. The gray-haired man looks down at her with a stunned, blushing face, unable to move or speak. As her heart continues to race, Gia notes with surprise that he isn't pushing her away like usual. They lock eyes intensely, both flushed and breathless as the heavy tension between them reaches a breaking point. Their faces draw closer in a lingering moment of vulnerability, the air between them thick with unspoken feelings. Gu-chan stands frozen, his muscular arms framing the black-haired woman as the world around them fades away. Gia suddenly pulls back with a frantic, blushing shout, her internal thoughts spiraling over the embarrassing physical contact. A quick dash sounds as she flees the room, leaving the gray-haired man standing alone in total shock. Gu-chan remains in the hallway, his face a bright crimson as he clutches his chest, feeling faint. He stares into space with dilated eyes, questioning if the sudden embrace was real or just his imagination. Thud. The chibi man collapses onto the floor, overwhelmed by the rapid-fire emotions of the unexpected physical affection. Later, the gray-haired man focuses on cooking while trying to regain his composure, despite his lingering blush. Gia's eyes sparkle with hunger as she looks at the meal, her earlier embarrassment replaced by pure culinary excitement. Standing together in the kitchen, the black-haired woman enthusiastically chooses his home cooking over eating out at a restaurant. Gia sets up her recording equipment, using the video content as a convenient excuse to spend more time together. The black-haired woman stands beside the tall, muscular man, observing his focused movements as he prepares their dinner. She watches him with a soft, pensive look, her heart softening as she reflects on their changing relationship. Gu-chan rests his hand on his chin, lost in thought as he works through the confusion of the evening. He reflects on their history, noting that while she used to shut him out, she's finally letting him in. Gia watches him from the side, her eyes full of curiosity and a growing desire to understand him better. The gray-haired man turns back with a neutral expression, sensing her gaze but remaining silent as he continues working.
Claiming she is exhausted, the black-haired woman asks if she can lean on his sturdy shoulder for a moment. To her immense surprise, the gray-haired man quietly agrees, allowing her to rest against him while he stands still. Gia stands in stunned silence, her eyes wide as she realizes his warm response wasn't just in her head. She covers her face with her hands, blushing deeply as she experiences the comforting weight of leaning against him.
Guchan presents a neatly prepared plate of omurice, signaling that the meal is finally ready for her to enjoy. Gia bursts into laughter at the adorable presentation of the food, while the chibi man looks away in embarrassment.
They sit across from each other at the low table, the atmosphere still tinged with a shy, awkward energy. The black-haired woman mentions she remembered his preference for beer from a previous time they spent together at home. A monochrome memory shows Gia offering him a drink, recalling how they both ended up drinking quite a lot. Sitting together on the floor, they share a quiet moment as the conversation turns toward their shared past experiences. Gia smiles warmly, admitting she didn't realize he knew so much about her habits since she never spoke up. Looking at her knowingly, the gray-haired man observes that she drank an unusual amount for someone who dislikes alcohol. He leans forward slightly, asking her if she truly remembers the details of what happened between them that night. A quick squirm sounds as Gia's toes curl against the carpet, her body reacting to the sudden shift in tone. The gray-haired man continues with a serious look, clarifying that he is referring to a very specific, memorable day. Realization dawns on Gia's face as her cheeks flush a deep pink, her hands trembling as she looks away. He pauses for a moment, his own face reddening as he prepares to mention the night they spent together. A heavy silence fills the modern apartment as they both dwell on the implications of that significant private memory. Guchan finally speaks the words aloud, confirming his clear recollection of the night they slept together in this house. The gray-haired man stares at her with absolute sincerity, his blush deepening as the truth hangs in the air. An illustration of a skeleton in a grave suggests that he would remember that night for an entire century. Gia looks down at the table, stuttering out a sincere apology for whatever happened during that hazy, alcohol-fueled night. The black-haired woman looks up with a bewildered expression, caught off guard by his calm and honest admission. Guchan sits at the table, revealing that he wasn't the only one who felt a surge of excitement then. Focusing on the empty plate, the gray-haired man insists that the event was simple and shouldn't be overcomplicated. Gia quickly tries to change the subject, urging him to eat before the food gets cold while her mind reels. The gray-haired man turns his head away, a bead of sweat on his neck as he avoids further eye contact. As the scene pulls back, the woman's internal thoughts continue to spiral through a chaotic, emotional roller coaster of confusion. A vibrant fantasy depicts Guchan on a throne surrounded by Gia and two other women, reflecting her wild imagination. Confused by Guchan's behavior, Gia's mind races as she wonders why the blushing man is messing with her. He dismisses his thoughts as silly, and despite the awkward topic, she decides not to pry any further. Gia enthusiastically praises his delicious omurice, while Guchan humbly admits his culinary skills are actually quite decent. When she asks for another plate, he flatly refuses while she searches the fridge for a fresh snack. Bringing out 2 apples, the black-haired woman teases him about the many bad things she already knows.
A playful argument breaks out as the chibi man insists on peeling the fruit, while Gia claims she's capable.
She questions his lack of trust, but Guchan remains firm about handling the knife himself during their bickering. Softening, the gray-haired man admits he simply feels guilty for all the help she has provided him recently. He expertly peels an apple while listing her many kindnesses, from hospital bills to bringing him medicine. Gia listens from behind, her long black hair cascading down her back as the room falls into quiet reflection. Catching him off guard, she asks why he always refers to her as you instead of her name.
Gia expresses her curiosity, noting that despite their long history, he avoids using common honorifics or her name.
A sudden, sharp tuck sounds as an apple slice slips from his hand and lands on the carpet.
The narration confirms that Gu-chan is completely flustered by her pointed question about how he addresses her. He internally debates his awkwardness with women, wondering if a sincere apology would finally fix the ongoing tension. Looking up at him, Gia asks if his refusal to use her name is a way of keeping distance. When she suggests he try calling her Miss Gia, the gray-haired man hides his face in deep embarrassment. She playfully pummels him while demanding he say it, but he cries out in protest, unable to comply.
Suggesting he just use her name without honorifics, Gia grows increasingly frustrated by his stubborn, blushing refusal. She offers sister as an alternative, but he admits that title feels even more difficult for him to say.
Accusing him of acting this way on purpose, her voice echoes through the modern apartment during their heated debate. He asks if such distrust is normal for coworkers, but Gia immediately seizes on his choice of words. The black-haired woman questions if he treats Aaron, their other coworker, with the same cold, distant formality. Gu-chan remains silent, his expression a mix of defensiveness and irritation as she continues to press the issue. Tension peaks as Gia lunges onto the couch, pinning the muscular man beneath her in a bold confrontation. Their faces draw inches apart, and the air crackles with intensity while his heart begins to beat wildly. She stares him down with a fierce, unwavering gaze, demanding he be honest about his feelings for her. Gia asks if he feels more comfortable around Aaron, her voice laced with a hint of growing jealousy. He tries to deny it, but she instantly calls him a liar, refusing to let him evade her again. They continue to shout and wrestle on the sofa, both overwhelmed by the chaotic energy of the moment. Suddenly, Gu-chan reaches out and grabs a can of beer, startling Gia with his sudden, decisive movement. He chugs the drink as she watches in stunned silence, wondering what has prompted this unexpected burst of courage. A heavy thud sounds as the empty can hits the floor, and Gia warns him about drinking so fast. Sitting on his knees before her, the gray-haired man prepares to speak with a newfound, alcohol-fueled determination. He notes that since she has had a few drinks herself, it is the perfect time to talk. Gu-chan boldly suggests they do it, causing Gia to panic and question exactly what he means by that. Her frantic scream fills the room as she completely misunderstands his intentions, her imagination running wild. He clarifies that he wants to sort out their titles, looming over her while she lies frozen beneath him. Realizing her embarrassing mistake, Gia's face turns a bright crimson while he asks why she is so shocked. The gray-haired man looks down at her with a soft, blushing face, waiting for her to process his words. She buries her face in her hands, wishing she could disappear after her wildly inappropriate mental jump. He apologizes for his poor phrasing, while she groans in shame over her own strange and awkward thoughts. Rubbing his neck, Gu-chan admits he messed up the delivery as he tries to regain his composure. Despite the embarrassment, he repeats his offer to change how they address each other, his gaze lingering. He sits before her on the couch, focus returning to the serious matter of their changing relationship. Gia stammers out a series of excuses, claiming she is completely wasted and far too drunk to be reasonable. Gu-chan watches her intently, listening to her frantic explanations while the heavy tension slowly begins to settle. She looks him in the eye and insists she is totally drunk, using it as a shield for her feelings. Gia looks away, her heart racing as she admits she truly can't bring herself to change things. The world seems to stop as Gu-chan finally speaks the word, calling her Nuna with absolute sincerity. Gia stares in stunned silence as the word Nuna finally escapes Gu-chan's lips, prompting him to retch.
A flurry of concerned dialogue reveals Gu-chan's physical nausea over the sudden, awkward shift in their relationship's formality. Collapsing onto the carpet, the gray-haired man hides his face in his arms, lamenting his perceived loss of dignity.
He recalls his life surrounded by rugged construction workers who praised his masculinity, making his current softness feel shameful. In a brief memory, a younger Gu-chan smiles confidently while working on site, a contrast to his current flustered state. A vibrant pink-hued fantasy depicts a chibi version of him acting out an adorable, heart-filled confession to his senior. Returning to reality, Jia remains frozen, while Gu-chan internally despairs, convinced that his cool persona is permanently shattered. They sit awkwardly in the spacious living room, debating whether the new title truly sounds as bad as he thinks. The black-haired woman looks at him with intense curiosity, her purple eyes searching for the truth behind his discomfort. Gu-chan turns his back to her, explaining that his previous mention of Aaron was a clumsy attempt at clarification. He insists that she misunderstood the nature of his workplace relationships, fearing that others might take the gossip seriously. Jia bursts into lighthearted laughter, finding his extreme embarrassment over the small matter of a title genuinely adorable. She reflects on how he is finally opening up, while the gray-haired man looks up with a deep, lingering blush. When he asks what she's thinking, Jia simply smiles and touches her face, keeping her warm realization to herself. Staring at him with a renewed gaze, she decides to embrace the possibility of something more growing between them. She admits she likes him just as he is, causing the gray-haired man to stare back with a soft expression. As they relax on the sofa, Jia notices he has slipped into speaking casually, which he quickly tries to apologize for. They discuss the benefits of dropping formal speech altogether, noting it would make them seem closer for their video channel. Looking down at him from the couch, Jia checks on his condition after his sudden, bold display of courage. She emphasizes that maintaining a close, informal appearance is essential for their professional success as a duo on NeoTube. Leaning close together, she observes that they have already become quite comfortable in each other's presence during this long night. Gu-chan looks her in the eye and softly agrees, finally accepting the evolving nature of their deep personal bond. A close-up of Jia reveals her gentle, content smile as she asks if he truly feels the same way. Later, the scene shifts to a camera setup where the gray-haired man continues to grumble about the awkward title. Jia stands before her desk, looking at the recording equipment while reflecting on the evening's many chaotic emotional turns. She touches her cheek with a quiet sigh, playfully calling herself silly for getting so worked up over him. Walking away into the shadows of the apartment, she resolves to keep pushing for their shared success and future. In a chibi-style bedroom scene, Gu-chan kicks his legs in frustration while reading secret dating rumors about them online. He yells at his phone in a fit of comedic rage, wondering which of their coworkers uploaded the embarrassing video. In the quiet of his own room, the real Gu-chan lies awake, staring at his glowing phone screen in thought. He realizes that his efforts are paying off, as the financial rewards from their videos are arriving sooner than expected. Clasping a pillow to his chest, he stares at the ceiling, the tension of the night replaced by a quiet hope. He smiles softly, looking forward to treating his younger siblings to a special meal without any financial worries tomorrow. A cute illustration shows the gray-haired man at home, playfully acting as a jungle gym for his energetic little siblings. Early the next morning, he sits exhausted on the bed, while his little brother climbs onto his broad, sturdy shoulders. The young boy mentions seeing the video, teasing his older brother by saying he and Jia look basically married. Gu-chan scolds the boy, Gu-hae-in, for being a little brat and nagging him about things he doesn't understand. He gently pulls the boy down from his shoulders, trying to maintain order in the middle of the morning rush. Despite his brother's annoyance, the little boy continues to pester him with questions about the woman from the screen.
Reaching out with a quick movement, Gu-chan playfully flicks the boy's head, telling him to finally be quiet.
He tells the child to stop acting like a baby and get dressed for their upcoming elementary school ceremony.
Looking back at his brother, the gray-haired man tells him to grab his bag and prepare for the big day. He pauses for a moment. The boy's innocent comment about turning his gaze away. He internally debates his true feelings, admitting to himself that he certainly doesn't hate her.
A flush creeps up his neck as he wonders if not hating her actually means he has fallen for her.
The scene shifts to the bright exterior of an elementary school building, teeming with families for the entrance ceremony. Gu-chan's younger siblings stand outside, looking cute and excited as they prepare to enter their new school together.
A middle-aged woman approaches Chan, mentioning the rumors she heard about him and a certain black-haired woman.
Blushing furiously, the gray-haired man urges her to ignore the idle talk and focus on the ceremony instead. The little brother pipes up with a wide, bright grin, begging his brother to invite Jia to join them soon.
Gu-chan refuses to call Jia despite his younger brother's loud and persistent pleas to see the woman.
The gray-haired girl in the pink jacket watches as her brother continues his energetic, noisy tantrum. While the boy identifies Jia in the distance, Gu-chan playfully pinches his cheek to stop the teasing. A text history reveals that Chan unintentionally invited Jia by sharing the ceremony's specific time and location. Gu-chan hides his face in shame, realizing his naive mistake of essentially advertising his whereabouts to her. Jia arrives at the school in a stylish gray coat, apologetically explaining her delay to the family.
The middle-aged woman gazes at Jia with curiosity, recognizing her as the person the kids always mention.
When his mother asks if Jia is his girlfriend, Chan screams in a bright red fit of denial. Jia formally greets the family while Chan remains flustered as they stand among the busy schoolyard crowd. The little boy blushes while holding a red rose, having participated in the seniors' welcoming ceremony rituals. Holding her own rose, the little girl smiles happily, clearly enjoying the special attention of the day. The mother announces her departure, leaving Gu-chan and Jia to watch over the children for the afternoon.
She insists that Jia and Chan take the kids to lunch alone as a young family unit.
Jia looks on in mild surprise as the mother makes her strategic exit, leaving them alone together. Gu-chan tries to protest, wanting a full family lunch, but his mother has already made her decision. Waving goodbye, the mother leaves them together, while Jia bids her a respectful and polite farewell. Jia smiles with visible relief once the pressure of the initial parental meeting has finally passed. Chan turns toward her, preparing to address the lingering awkwardness as they stand in the quiet hallway. The black-haired woman reminds him of their agreement to drop formal speech, looking at him with expectation. Blushing deeply, Chan plays dumb and pretends to have forgotten their deal about using more casual language. They discuss their video's success, both surprised that their chaotic interaction resonated so well with their viewers. Jia explains her editing intentions, admitting she never meant for the more personal, embarrassing moments to be public. Gu-chan dismisses her worries, noting that he accepted the risks of filming the moment they started. Walking down the hall, Chan attempts to use casual speech endings while mentioning the money they earned. Standing together in the auditorium, he nervously suggests they finally commit to dropping formal speech for real. They decide to explore the school campus together, noted by a sign stating they are the only ones left. The mood shifts abruptly to a prison watchtower, overlooking a grim, fenced-in facility under a pale sky. Inside the facility, the mother gazes through a glass partition during visitation, her expression weary and sad. Back at the school, Jia admires the beautiful courtyard and fountain, impressed by the high-quality facilities. The pair walks side by side, the distance between them shrinking as they explore the peaceful campus grounds together. Chan gazes at the building, admitting that he lacks many warm memories from his own school years. Jia asks if he attended this specific school, and he clarifies that he went to an older facility.
She remarks on how exceptionally clean everything looks, noticing the pristine condition of the modern campus architecture. Gia struggles to descend the outdoor stairs, her high heels making the walk a painful and difficult struggle. She regrets her choice of footwear, wishing she had worn sneakers for a day full of walking.
Suddenly calling her Nuna, Chan shocks her into silence with his bold and intimate change in address.
He offers his hand to steady her, his back turned as he provides support for the stairs.
Extending his hand firmly, he acknowledges the difficulty of her heels and provides the steady support she needs. Gia accepts his help while he teases her for always choosing impractical high shoes for long outings. A deep flush covers Guchan's face as he wonders internally if she dressed up specifically for him. At the bottom of the steps, he notices with a racing heart that she still hasn't released his hand. Gia suggests visiting the playground, while Chan checks to make sure her feet are actually feeling all right. He agrees to the playground visit, his expression softening as he gazes at her with newfound affection. A close-up shows their fingers tightly interlaced, Gia refusing to let go even on the level ground. She smiles brightly at him, relishing the physical connection they have finally established during their walk. Claiming that even flat ground is difficult, she makes an excuse to keep holding his hand tightly. Chan calls out her playful lie as they walk away together, his heart visibly pounding with excitement. Back at home, the two siblings sleep soundly in their pajamas, exhausted from their big first day.
Gia and Chan stand over the bed, whispering quietly so as not to wake the resting children.
They recount the day's many activities, agreeing that the kids are completely drained after all the fun. Chan turns back with a gentle expression, offering a soft word of gratitude as the evening continues. Sitting on the couch, Gia gazes around the room, quietly wondering if this modest home is where Chan spent his childhood. Chan serves juice as a humble alternative to water, prompting Gia to warmly accept the gesture in their quiet living room. The gray-haired man looks slightly taken aback, questioning the suddenness of her observation about his past. Gia looks up from her drink in genuine surprise, her eyes widening as she processes his unexpected revelation. Chan gazes away while holding his mug, explaining that he became the family's sole provider out of necessity. Deeply moved, Gia praises his difficult sacrifice and acknowledges the heavy burden he chose to carry for his loved ones. When Gia calls him a great brother, Chan looks down humbly, thanking her for always being so kind with her words. In the cozy room, Chan blushes while dismissing past suggestions as embarrassing, while Gia watches him with an amused, affectionate smile. Walking outside together, the pair discusses their transportation plans while the sound of their steady footsteps echoes through the night. Chan checks his phone with a frown, noting the difficulty of finding a taxi in this quiet neighborhood so late.
Under the warm glow of the streetlights, Gia leans toward him and playfully suggests he should stay by her side.
Looking him directly in the eye, she flashes a charming smile while waiting for him to agree with her bold suggestion. A deep blush spreads across Chan's face as he struggles to maintain his composure under her intense, affectionate gaze. Gia encourages him to consider higher education, suggesting his sharp instincts would serve him well in a professional field. Chan admits that while he wants his siblings to succeed, he never imagined himself attending college or pursuing his own dreams. Gia reflects on her own path, noting how watching others find their passion in school made professional learning seem meaningful. She explains the concept of a campus couple to a curious Chan, describing the youthful excitement of dating a classmate. Her expression turns teasing as she focuses her attention back on him, beginning a sentence that hints at his romantic future. With a smug, knowing smirk, Chan counters her teasing by claiming she won't have the chance to date someone else. Stunned by his sudden boldness, Gia freezes in place, a visible flush creeping up her cheeks as she stares at him. Above the quiet rooftops, the two continue their playful bickering while still waiting for their elusive taxi to arrive.